Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at a concept called cultural Christianity.
Hmm.
And this deep dive is going to be based on a recent sermon from Pastor Janice Doyle.
Okay.
I got to say, this sermon really got me thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's about this idea that, there's a difference between just calling yourself a Christian and actually, truly living as a follower of Jesus.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
It's pretty compelling.
It is.
So how does she sort of get into this whole concept?
Well, she starts off by throwing out a pretty interesting statistic.
Okay.
She says that 53% of Canadians identify as Christian,
Wow, that's
which is, a significant chunk of the population.
yeah, for sure.
But then you look at the numbers for, actual church attendance,
Right.
and it kind of tells a different story.
So what's the disconnect there?
Well, that's what we're going to be exploring,
Okay.
and that's where these cultural Christians, as she calls them, come in.
So cultural Christians, that's kind of the...
That's the term she uses.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of know what she means by that, right?
Yeah, just by the name and
Yeah.
People...
I know for me, I can think of times when I've got to church more out of tradition than any real, deep belief.
Oh, yeah, just kind of going through the motions.
Exactly.
Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, like showing up for Christmas Eve service, because that's just what my family's always done.
Okay.
But Pastor Doyle, she uses this analogy in her sermon that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
She asks, does standing in your garage automatically make you a car?
Ooh, I like that.
It's pretty good, eh?
Yeah.
And it really just gets at that idea that,
Yeah.
just because you're present in a church environment
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that you have a deep and personal relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, you're not really living it.
Yeah.
It's more like just the label.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that go beyond just that sort of surface level,
Uh-huh.
Pastor Doyle brings up love
Okay.
as a really key difference between what she calls cultural and authentic Christianity. But it's not just any kind of love.
Right. So what kind of love is she talking about?
Well, she breaks it down into two very specific types of love.
Okay, so there's two.
Yeah. And she says that both of them are absolutely crucial.
Okay. I'm interested.
So the two types of love are love for God
Okay.
and love for others.
Okay, so both.
Yeah.
Both are essential.
Exactly.
And how does she kind of back that up?
Well, she actually connects it to the greatest commandment from the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She quotes the one from the Gospel of Matthew that says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind.
Wow.
And love your neighbor as yourself.
So it's that dual focus on love.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to.
Exactly. And she argues that it's that dual focus that's really at the heart of what it means to be a follower of Jesus.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not just about loving God.
Right.
And it's not just about loving other people.
It's both.
You got to have both.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me think about something else she talks about in her sermon.
What's that?
She mentions this contrast between people who say they're spiritual but not religious,
Right.
and then those who are super religious, but don't seem to have that personal connection with Jesus.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, where do they fit in, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do those groups fall on this whole spectrum of belief?
It's tricky.
It is.
Yeah. And then,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then she brings up the whole idea of worship, which she says it's about way more than just showing up at church on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. She's got a lot to say about that.
She does.
So what's her take on worship?
Well, she basically says that it's about walking the walk. Actually living out your faith in a way that...
Yeah, that shows that it's real.
Exactly.
That you're not just talking the talk.
Right.
You're actually putting it into practice.
Yeah, and she makes this really interesting point.
Okay.
She says that, even those who are genuinely trying to live like Jesus are going to mess up sometimes.
Oh, yeah, we're all human, right?
Exactly.
Nobody's perfect.
And I thought that was really refreshing to hear.
Yeah, it's kind of reassuring in a way.
It is.
That it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
As long as you're learning and growing from them.
Right. And she emphasizes this idea that faith is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
It's not about
reaching some sort of perfect state of holiness or something.
Exactly. It's about constantly, learning, growing, and trying to become more like Jesus every single day.
It's a process.
It is.
And she also talks about the importance of the faith family in that process.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one for her.
It is.
She really stresses that we need that support system.
Yeah, like a community of people who share our beliefs, who get it.
Yeah.
Who can, support us.
Encourage us.
Help us stay accountable.
Yeah. Hold us accountable.
And just be there for us through all the ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not a journey we're meant to take alone.
It's not.
And that really ties back to her whole point about, authentic Christian living not being a solo thing.
Right.
It's about being part of a community
Uh-huh.
that can lift you up and support you.
And challenge you.
Yeah. Definitely challenge you too.
Yeah.
To be better.
To do better.
To keep striving for that
more
authentic
expression of your faith.
expression of your faith.
It's interesting stuff.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty thought-provoking.
It is.
And I think we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, we've got a lot more to unpack.
We do. So stay tuned because we're going to keep diving deeper into all of this in part 2 of this deep dive.
All right, I'm ready for it.
All right, let's do it. It's interesting, is it, like, when you hear Pastor Doyle talk about that importance of community,
Yeah.
it makes me think about how easy it is to just kind of fall back into those,
right.
cultural Christianity patterns when you're not around people who can challenge you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you need that support system
You do.
to keep you accountable,
Uh-huh.
to help you stay true to what you believe in.
And to keep pushing you to grow.
Yeah, to keep striving for that,
Yeah.
authentic expression of your faith.
It's like iron sharpens iron.
Exactly.
Having those people around you who can
Right.
kind of help you stay on track.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you are who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And that's definitely true when it comes to faith.
It is.
And, that whole idea of being part of a community,
Yeah.
it actually ties into another really interesting question that Pastor Doyle brings up.
Oh, what's that?
She asks, what does it truly mean to be the church?
That is a good question.
It is. It's like she's challenging us to think beyond just,
Right.
identifying as Christians.
And actually, like, living it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, how do we actually bridge that gap?
Between just saying we're Christians
Right.
and actually,
Walking the walk.
walking the walk.
Living a life that reflects that
Yeah,
deep personal relationship with Jesus.
it's a tough one.
It is. It's a big question.
But where do you even begin to answer that?
Well, Pastor Doyle suggests we start by taking a good, hard look in the mirror,
Okay.
like really examining our own hearts and asking ourselves some tough questions.
Like what kind of questions?
Well, for starters, she asks, are we truly seeking after and following Jesus with all of our hearts?
Wow.
It's like a gut check,
Yeah, are we all in?
Exactly. Are we fully committed?
Right.
Or are we just kind of dipping our toes in?
And it's not just about the level of commitment either, right?
Right. She also asks about our motivations. Like, why are we doing the things we're doing?
Are we doing them for the right reason?
Exactly. Are we trying to please God, or are we more concerned with,
Right.
pleasing other people?
Or maybe even ourselves.
Yeah, maybe even just trying to make ourselves look good.
It's like a spiritual self-assessment
It is. It's about being honest with ourselves.
about where we're at.
Yeah, and what areas we might need to work on.
And it seems like love plays a pretty big role in all of this.
Oh, absolutely. Love is like the foundation
It is.
of authentic Christianity.
Yeah.
And Pastor Doyle emphasizes that we need to be cultivating love in 2 key areas.
Okay.
Love for God
Mm-hmm.
and love for our neighbor.
And those two go hand in hand, right?
I do. They're interconnected.
Like you can't really have one without the other.
Exactly. It's like 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah. And she challenges us to think about whether love is really the driving force behind everything we do.
Yeah, like our actions matching our words.
Are we putting love into action?
Exactly. It's not enough to just talk about love.
You got to live it.
You got to live. You got to show it.
And that can be tough sometimes.
It can be. It's definitely a challenge.
But I love how Pastor Doyle presents this whole thing.
What do you mean?
Well, she doesn't frame it as like a burden or a chore.
Right.
She actually makes it sound like an adventure.
Yeah, she talks about faith as a journey. It's an ongoing journey of transformation.
And she reminds us that we're not supposed to have it all figured out.
Right.
Like it's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah, we're all a work in progress.
We're
We're all learning and growing and trying to become more like Jesus every day.
And that we don't have to do it alone.
That's a really important point.
It is.
She stresses the importance of having that support system.
Yeah, that faith family.
There's people who can encourage you and guide you and hold you accountable.
People who get it.
Yeah, who understand what you're going through.
And who can celebrate your victories with you.
Absolutely.
And help you through those tough times.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
We are.
And that we need each other.
And that brings us back to this whole question.
Of cultural Christianity.
Yeah, like where do we each fit in
On that spectrum.
on that spectrum
Oh,
of
right.
cultural Christianity versus authentic faith?
Right, and Pastor Doyle's sermon really makes us think about that.
It does. It challenges us to
Yeah.
look at our own beliefs
And our actions.
and ask ourselves,
Are they lining up?
are they lining up
With the teachings of Jesus.
with what it truly means to be a follower of Christ?
And that's a question that can be a little uncomfortable.
It can be.
But it's an important one to ask.
It is.
Because it's not about judging ourselves or other people.
Right. It's about
being honest.
with ourselves.
Yeah, about where we are on our own faith journey.
And then taking steps to move forward.
Yeah, to grow and to deepen our understanding of what it truly means to be a follower of Jesus.
To move beyond the label.
Exactly.
And embrace the real thing.
That's what it's all about.
And at the very end of her sermon,
Yeah.
Pastor Doyle actually leaves us with 3 questions to ponder
Oh, yeah.
that I thought were really powerful.
They're like a roadmap for this whole journey.
They are like a roadmap for moving from just cultural Christianity to like a more
authentic expression of faith.
authentic expression of faith.
So what are those 3 questions?
It's like she's giving us this like measuring stick to see,
Yeah.
if we're really walking the walk.
If our faith is the real deal.
Exactly.
To see if it's actually lining up
Yeah.
with what Jesus taught.
With the life and teachings of Jesus.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because I think these questions aren't just for people who might fall into that, cultural Christianity category.
Right. They're for everyone.
Yeah, they're for all of us.
No matter where you are.
No matter where you are on your faith journey.
On your journey.
Whether you're just starting out
Yeah.
or you've been walking with Jesus for years.
It's always good to check in with yourself.
It is. It's like a
spiritual checkup.
Yeah.
To make sure you're still on the right path.
to make sure you're still aligned with what you believe.
With your values.
So what were those 3 questions again?
Okay, so the first one is, am I truly seeking after and following Jesus with all my heart? Like, am I really all in?
Am I fully committed?
Exactly.
Is he really the center of my life?
That's the question.
Wow.
And then the second question is there growing love in my life for God and for others?
Okay. So again, it's that dual focus on love.
It is. It's about recognizing that
Yeah.
love for God and love for our neighbors,
They go together.
they're inseparable.
You can't have one without the other.
And it's not just about feeling love, it's about
Right.
showing love.
Putting it into action
Exactly.
in your everyday life.
In everything you do.
Mm.
And then the third question is, am I living my own life in such a way that it points others to the greatness of God? Do I live my life in such a way to show others the light and love of Christ?
So it's about
Yeah.
the impact we have on others.
About being a reflection
Yeah.
of God's love
Of Jesus.
in the world.
Those are really good questions.
They are. They're pretty powerful.
They are. And, they're not easy questions to answer.
No, they're not.
But I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah, it's about making us think.
It is.
About challenging us to really examine our hearts.
And to see if
Yeah.
our lives are matching up
Yeah, if we're really living out
with our beliefs.
what we say we believe.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into cultural Christianity, I hope it's given you all some food for thought.
Yeah, me too.
And maybe even inspired you to kind of, explore your own faith journey a little bit deeper.
Yeah, to really dig in and see what it's all about.
And to see where you fit on that spectrum.
Yeah, of cultural Christianity versus authentic faith. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a great conversation.
It has, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.